So you're in our shuttle, our electric shuttle, and for many of you it's the first time you've ever been in an electric vehicle. Well, when we became an electric dealer about a year ago, I ordered the very first vehicle for myself because I had so many questions and so many people asked me questions. I thought I should buy one, I should drive one. I got it on March 8th. So Zach's going to ask me a bunch of questions that we're getting asked by people all the time that are driving in the shuttle. Surprisingly, not as much as you would think. It's a front-wheel drive vehicle. It's much more impact than the fact that it's electric. The front-wheel drive vehicle, you just got to get used to driving it. What I found is that the weight of the Bolt, because the battery pack is quite low, and it goes through snow real well. I've got a great pair of snow tires, but I think people are wondering what happens to the range when they ask that question, and about 40% of your electricity is going to generate heat, which takes your range down from 450 down to 250, right there. I haven't driven it in minus 30, but I've driven it in minus 18, minus 20. It's fine. And most people ask, well, what happens if I go to a hotel? Well, the 110 cord that we give you with the car acts as a battery warmer. So you don't have to worry about it if you need to plug it in your car outside, because it sort of trickle charges and keeps it warm. At one time in the summer, when I wasn't using air conditioning because I didn't need it, it was over 500 kilometers. But I think in normal driving, in the summer, when weather's good, you can probably get 400 kilometers out of the thing. Now, when I went on a highway, I did it 118, and I'm sorry if you're wearing the red uniform. I do 118 because I go 8 over. And I think if you went 100 down 118, your range, just like on a gas vehicle, would be dramatically better. But I found the range easily in summer, I would have no problem getting to Edmonton or Saskatoon. And I think the big thing that's going to change over the next 5-10 years is the ability of those fast charge stations where you go in and 20 minutes later you're up to 80% charge. And of course, speaking of charge, they're going to charge you for that electricity because it's a fair amount of electricity at once. But the range anxiety over the next 5-10 years is going to go away. The acceleration is great. It's like driving the go-kart when you were a kid of your dreams. And without that, you don't have to feel guilty about the fact that you're making noise in the neighborhood. To me, it rides almost like a luxury vehicle because the battery pack is low, and I think that gives it more stability, the way the weight goes. I've had lots of friends drive the vehicle, and the most interesting comment I got, because I was tuned to the classical station that time, and said, "What a beautiful experience to be in the car, so quiet, there's a little bit of a hum, and listening to this classical symphony." So you'll find it quiet. Now, winter tires add a lot of sound, even just a regular winter tires. But anyway, it drives like a much bigger car. I'm going to give you more detail than you want, maybe. I put in a home charger. Now, home charger, you can get anywhere from $500 to $5,000. I got the $1,000 one, is 30 amp. From dead empty, it charges it in 4.5 hours. But I usually charge it once it gets a little below a half. During summer, it was every 3, sometimes 4 weeks, because I was just driving city driving. Right now, in winter, I'm charging it about every 10 days, because again, you're using so much of the electricity for the heat. Keep in mind, this is a compact car, so it's not that big, and probably costs between $4 to $5 for a full charge, where a full tank of gas would cost you maybe $35. And since we're talking about charging, really the car's smart. I didn't realize that. The car is the smartest charging system. You can program how fast you want it to charge, when you want it to charge. Mine, for example, is programmed to go on in enough time to fully charge it before 6 o'clock in the morning. And you can set that at any time. That's a long way of answering that you don't have to charge it that often. And really, the cord we give you for someone that's driving in town, the 110 cord, it might take 3 to 4 hours for it to charge if you plug it in. But if you plug it in every night, you don't need to buy the fancy charger. You know, most people, when they ask that question, are really saying it looks smaller than the Tesla. And I want to start off before talking about how small it is. The difference between the Tesla Model 3 and the Chevrolet Bolt, both priced about, actually the Tesla's about $5,000 more for the same size battery pack. The Chevrolet Bolt, this sounds like commercial's got a little more range, but in practically like the wheelbase, I think it's 0.5 inch one way or the other. The cubic feet of usable room inside is within 2. One's 96, one's 94, I forget which one. So in they're going to make electric cars in every size. And against the Tesla 3, the actual comparables there. Now, I touched on it before, but this vehicle, because of the way the battery pack sits so low, even though it is a small wheelbase car, and yes, it is a small wheelbase car, it drives like, I call it like a luxury car. It really drives nicer than it should, and it's quieter, maybe again because of the insulation they put in for the battery pack. So it, it looks small, but it's not small with a big room to do lots of stuff. Truthfully, it is. If you want to buy an electric car right now or in the next 4 to 5 years, you're doing it to save the economy because your payback periods, depending on a bunch of factors, is between 8 and 10 years. Now, if you're a taxi driver, it probably pays back in 2 years, but the average driver is going to take 8 to 10 years. So right now, they're sitting at about $10,000 to $12,000 more than the comparable gas vehicle. And the federal government throws in a $5,000 rebate. So you're sitting about $8,000 more, and it takes the less fuel and the less maintenance that you can expect. It takes about that long to get there. So the reality is, to drive electric right now and in the near future, it's more expensive to drive an electric vehicle because of the capital costs. If you plan to keep the vehicle long, it'll pay for itself. First of all, the incentive programs came out, and we're talking about a more expensive than entry-level car. So when they give a discount or a rebate from the federal government, it's going to people that have money. I'm sorry, but that's the reality is, and I don't think it's an efficient rebate. To compound that, the people that give rebates, British Columbia, Quebec, and Ontario, well, Ontario has about 25 to 30% of their power is nuclear. Both Quebec and BC run about 95% of their power is hydroelectric. It's free. After they built it, it's free. So it's really not costing them more to switch people over. I've heard that the electric billing rates for electricity is really high in BC, even the fact that it's hydroelectric. So that's a long way of saying I don't anticipate Saskatchewan and Alberta ever putting in a program to incentivize the purchase of electric vehicles at this time. Well, if you're a long-range thinker, it makes sense because the payback period is 8 to 10 years. So in 8 years, if you drive a gas vehicle, it financially will have cost you the same amount for 8 years if you drive this electric vehicle. So it equals out about that. In terms of your carbon footprint, electric vehicles do take more because of the battery construction. But the best estimates out there, depending on a bunch of factors, is that the electric vehicle will use about 35 to 40% of the carbon output of a equivalent size gas vehicle. So financially, if you're a long range thinker, but right out of day one, if you want to put your money where your mouth is and make a difference to your carbon footprint, it is the financial decision to make now. That's a funny question because the first minus 22 day of the shuttle you're in right now, if you're driving the shuttle when you listen to this, they went to get it to get the deckling put on at minus 22 or minus 23. And half the sales staff said, it started? Well, of course it did. What I found, I've driven 5,000 kilometers. I've had the vehicle 8 months and I haven't had a stitch of problem. Nothing. Truthfully, I drive new gas vehicles. I don't have a stitch of problem with those either. They say that the maintenance on long term is a lot less. I'm driving a new vehicle, and other than regular maintenance that they tell you to do every 6 months for $80, $85, I think that's going to be about it. I think reliability, all the stats there say that electric is reliable, and based on my 8 months of driving, it certainly bears that out. Well, from Lloydminster, and I don't think so. I'm not the guru, but without question, the majority of them within 10 to 15 years are going to be electric. They'll fix the range anxiety because you'll be able to get, between here and Edmonton, you'll be able to get a filling in Vermilion and Vegreville and North Battleford and a couple of smaller, you'll be able to get those fast charges. So they'll fix the range anxiety that we'll all have. And the reality is it's cheaper to make in the long term than it is to make a normal vehicle for us. But I can't see ever not needing the type of power that gas can generate for so many things, including a lot of our light-duty trucks in the Lloydminster area. The first thing I'd like to say to summarize my experience with electric vehicles is it's fun to drive. It just is. People still wonder because I'm a car dealer, what are you driving that little car for? But quite honestly, it's fun. Even in the snow, I'm not having issues with it. However, I see it as a great second vehicle. I think all of us want to be able to make an emergency trip to Calgary in the middle of the night and not have to worry about charge. And I think that'll be true for the next 10, 15 years. I think we want a bigger vehicle that can carry 6, 7 people comfortable when we take family to a concert. But I think if you're commuting from, say for example, from Vermilion to Lloydminster or a distance like that, I think it just makes a lot of sense as a strong second vehicle that you use. And I think gradually over time, people are going to accept this and end up buying them as a second vehicle. Now they say battery technology and price will be equal to that of a gas vehicle. I don't expect most people to make that decision until they look at one of our SUVs and say, electric's the same price as gas, and then you get to pick. That's not going to happen for about 4 or 5 years. So there's still going to be a price to pay for electric. But if you're doing a big commute, great. And if you're, again, as a second vehicle, it's fun.